Hey Emma,
Hi.
how's it going?
Good.
Did you have a good day today?
Yeah.
All right, well, today we're going to start with our word study. Okay, so first I want you to read these words for me.
Cabin, central, cereal, critter, collect.
Look at this one again.
Critter?
It's called cider.
Oh.
Say that, cider, like apple cider. Have you ever heard of that? Like it's like a drink.
Oh.
Okay, cider.
Collect, cuddly. Killistic?
This one is cyclist.
Oh.
Cyclist, you know, like a bicycle. So
Yeah.
somebody that rides on a bicycle is called a cyclist.
Oh.
Okay? Are there any other words that you really don't know what they mean? No? Okay. What do you notice about these words?
That they all have a C in them.
They all do start with C. Okay. You notice anything else about maybe their beginning sounds?
They're all like
Are they all K?
Well, no, not that one.
Okay. Which ones make that K sound at the beginning?
Cabin, collect, cuddly, and that's all.
Cabin, collect, and cuddly. Okay. What about the other ones? What's their first sound?
Like an S kind
Like
of.
an S. Okay, so sometimes the English language is really tricky. Okay, and there's sometimes where even though we try to sound out a word, that, you know, we ask ourselves, does the C make the S sound or does it make the K sound, right? And it's hard to figure out what that means, but sometimes there's some patterns that we can look at. Okay, so that's good that you pointed out that cabin and collect and cuddly all make that K sound, right? So you can know if the letter after the C is an A, O, or U, it's going to make a K sound. Okay?
Oh.
So if you think of words like cat, has an A after it, right? So it makes the K sound.
Oh.
Okay? Or like cut, like you get a cut on your hand.
Because it has the U.
Very good. It has the U after it, so that makes that K sound. But if it has an E, an I, or a Y after it, it makes that S sound. The S. Okay, like central and cereal and cider and cyclist. Okay, that's awesome that you noticed that.
Yeah, I
Right?
Yeah, I know that.
So we're gonna play around with these now. So I'm gonna give you a new set of words on these cards, and I want you to separate them. Okay.
So which one is that S and which one is the
Yep.
C?
So you can separate them either way you want. Just have one group that has the K sound and one group that has the S sound. Okay?
I'll have the K sound and an S.
Okay. And go ahead and read them for me as you're separating them.
Costly.
Costly, yes.
Oh. Contest. Community. College. Cement.
Cement, good.
Cycle. Circle. Century. Wait, I just saw this. Celebrate. Captain.
Very good. So were there any that you kind of didn't recognize at first, but you knew to make the sound based on what letter came after it?
Yeah.
Which
like
ones?
That one and that one.
So cycle, right? So maybe you didn't really recognize what the word was, but you looked at this Y and you knew, okay, that C is going to make this sound. Good. And then century too?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm going to mix them up. We're going to do it one more time. Okay?
Okay. Here, I'll pull
Yeah,
them out.
don't look. No cheating. These are hard to shuffle. I'll do like this. All right, here you go. Excuse me.
Cycle. Celebrate. Century. College. Captain. Costly.
Good.
Cement.
Cement. Good.
Cement.
You know what cement is? It's like kind of like a rock. Like they pour cement to make like a driveway or a road. So it's kind of like a hard concrete cement.
So,
Have you ever seen those big trucks that kind of have the big thing on
yeah.
them that go round and round? That's a cement truck, so it has cement in there.
community. Contest. Circle.
Good. Okay, so to just kind of wrap up our word study, what letters come after this that come after the C make the K sound?
The O, and the A.
And there's one more.
The U.
The U, very good. And which letters come after the C that make the S sound?
The I, the Y, the E, and that's all.
Good. Okay. So I want you to really quickly get out your word study notebook out of here. Open up to the first page, and I want you to kind of make note of that, and you can write these as your example, okay?
Wait, so I just.
Yep, so on that first blank page. There you go. Yeah, you can do it right here.
So
just kind of separate them into two columns like you did
I'll
here.
put
We're just
the
putting them in our notebook.
C and the S.
Okay. I want you to go ahead and underline the vowel under each one. That letter afterwards, the I, there you go. That makes it make that sound. Very good.
And then,
Did you get all these?
yeah. Okay.
Good. Okay, you can go ahead and put that notebook back in your folder. And go ahead and get out today's book. Okay, so today's book is called, can you tell me what it's called?
The particular.
Close. Peculiar.
The peculiar platypus.
Very good. The peculiar platypus. Have you ever seen a platypus before? You know much about them? Have you seen one in real life or just on Phineas and Ferb?
Just on Ferb.
That's what I thought. Okay, first I want you to flip to the back inside cover. I'm going to read that. Okay, and what does reading the back covers do?
Tell you about the book.
Yeah, it kind of gives us a look into what we're about to read about, right? So follow along with me here. The platypus, a living museum. Many scientists view the platypus as an ongoing puzzle, one that has surprised and confused them for centuries. Part duck, part beaver, part snake. It took scientists years to classify the platypus as a mammal. Today, scientists are learning new and surprising information about this seemingly mixed up animal by mapping its genes. Genes determine specific traits like the color of a person's eye or the length of an animal's tail. After the map of human genes was completed, the platypus was one of the other mammals to be mapped. The platypus shares traits with reptiles and birds. Scientists believe that the genes for those traits have remained unchanged in platypuses for millions of years. By studying platypus genes and how they evolved in the isolation of Australia, scientists hope to learn how genes operate in other mammals, including humans. Okay, so what information did you get from that?
About like the animals and
Okay, what about them?
it's like about like the platypus.
Okay, so about the platypus. Did it kind of say anything about where it was from? Did you
Yeah.
catch that?
From I know it said something about Australia.
Yeah, it's from Australia. Very good. So do scientists know much about the platypus,
Yeah, kind of.
or are they just trying to figure out?
Trying to.
They're still trying to learn about it, right? Okay, so I want you to read the back cover for me. Let's see if we can figure more about what this book is about. Yep.
The animal that made scientists wonder. Nature sometimes baffles scientists with creatures that don't seem to be possible. The platypus of Australia was one such case. Scientists wondered if this
That's a weird word. Bizarre.
bizarre creature was real or just a duck-billed furry hawk.
That word is hoax. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what that word means right now. Okay,
Okay.
We're gonna dive further into the book to see if we can kind of figure out, get some more clues about what we're going to read about. Okay, so I want you to flip to pages 2 and 3. Kind of this first page. What animal is that? In that picture.
Kangaroo.
That is a kangaroo. Do you know where kangaroos are from?
Australia.
Australia. So I want you to look at like the different headings on here. So right here, what's that say?
Australia, a place like no other.
And then what's this heading say?
A faraway land.
A faraway land. Okay, so it says Australia, a place like no other. And then over here on page 3, it says a faraway land. What can you expect to read on these pages based on those headings?
Like animals about animals that are from Australia.
Okay, animals that are from Australia. Very good. What other clues on the page make you think that?
Like they're gonna talk about Australia.
But what other clues from the book pop out at you before we even read the words?
Like it says that, and then it shows this, and it shows Australia in like a different color.
Okay, so it has Australia as it part of the heading, and then kind of highlights Australia in a map down here. And then you said a kangaroo was from where?
Australia.
Okay, so all big clues that we're about to probably read about Australia, right? Okay, so I'm going to read this right here. And I want you to ask me any questions you think, or just things you find interesting from here, okay? So it's titled Faraway Land. Australia is unusual in many ways. Almost half of its birds are found nowhere else. Most of its fish are only found in Australian waters. More than 80% of its plants, reptiles, and mammals live only in Australia. Why are the living things in Australia so unusual? The reason is that Australia is far from most other land. It is an island continent, cut off from other continents, so its plants and animals develop separately from living things in other parts of the world. So what did anything kind of stick out to you, or make you wonder anything when you read that?
Yeah, I did not know like there's like a lot of animals like there because there's like 80% of it's plants and then like reptiles and mammals. I did not know that.
What did it say? 80% of its plants, reptiles, and mammals live where?
Only in Australia.
Only in Australia. What's that mean?
So like they're born there. I guess?
Okay, they're born there.
Well, not the plants.
Can you find them anywhere else?
Well, yeah. Maybe.
If they're only in Australia?
No.
No, probably not. I mean, maybe like you see kangaroos in like zoos and things,
Yeah.
right? But where do you think those come from?
Australia.
Australia. Okay, now I want you to turn to page 4 and 5. So flip to the next one. What would you think if you have ever heard, or if you had never heard of this animal and someone brought it up to you? What would you think?
I think.
You don't know?
Um.
I mean, is it a kind of normal looking animal?
No, I saw this picture and I did not.
Yeah, what stuck out to you?
I don't know what this is called. I guess like his nose or something.
Okay, so it kind of has like a really, what kind of nose? What's different about it?
A big and like weird nose. I know.
It's big, weird, it's kind of flat, right? You've never really seen it on many other animals.
Yeah.
Where have you seen a nose like that? Is there an animal you can think of that has kind of like a nose that kind of sticks out like that?
No.
No? What about like a duck?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like a flat bill?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do you notice about the animal?
I noticed that. I feel like it might look like another animal, but besides like that,
What other animal you think it looks like?
I don't know how to. I don't know. But I feel like. I don't know. But then like let's say if I didn't know what any of this was, like I would probably think it'd be like an animal sniffing inside that.
Oh, like so you don't think that would like look attached
Yeah.
to the platypus?
I didn't think.
So maybe like it has its nose in something, sniffing inside something else?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I want you to look on page 4, and I want you to find the word hoax. Remember on the back cover we saw the word hoax, and I told you I wasn't going to tell you what that meant yet?
Oh, I found it.
Did you find it?
Yeah, because it was bolded.
Yeah, why do you think it's bolded?
It's probably one of like the word, like a vocab word.
Okay, a vocab word. It's probably pretty important, right? To whatever is on that page, and we're getting ready to read that in a second. But the author wanted it to stick out to you, right?
Probably because I didn't know.
Probably because it's probably a word that a lot of kids don't know what it means, right? So where could we look in a book? I know you know this one. Where could we look in a book if we don't know what a word means?
The glossary.
The glossary, very good. So can you find hoax on there? What's it mean?
Something created to trick or fool people.
So something created to trick or fool people. So it's kind of talking that a platypus, people thought it was a hoax at first, or something created to trick or fool people, right?
Oh.
So it's kind of just what you said, isn't it?
It would probably fool people because people would think it's like sniffing something.
Right, that's not really its real nose, right? Okay, now I want you to turn to page 7. And flip over to the next one. So scientists, after they studied it and, people went back and forth, and you're going to learn more about this. I don't want to ruin the book for you. But they kind of decided that even though it had the bill like the duck, right, that they had to classify it as something, right? And so we read on the back cover that they finally decided to classify it as a mammal, right? Did you know what a mammal was right off the top of your head when I read that? No, okay, so another word that we really didn't know what that meant. Okay, so on page 7, it gives us another sidebar down here that kind of goes into detail about what a mammal is. So can you read that for me?
Is it a mammal? Scientists at the time believed a mammal had to have hair, have a backbone, give birth to a young, not eggs, feed its babies milk.
Okay, so in order to be a mammal, it had to have 4 things checked off, right? It had to have hair. Does the platypus have hair from the pictures we've seen of it?
Well, I saw this picture. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one on there, does it?
And yeah.
On that one, does it have hair on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so check. It has a backbone, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like a snake that can slither through the grass and stuff like that. It gives birth to live young. You know what that means?
No.
Okay, so it has its baby. It doesn't just lay an egg and then the egg hatches. Okay, so they're saying that a mammal has its baby instead of laying an egg. Okay, and then feeds its babies milk. Okay, so are humans mammals? Go through the checklist.
But so I do have hair. I do have a backbone. And my mom did give birth.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So are humans mammals?
Yeah.
Yeah, we go through the checklist. Very good. All right. Now I want you to turn to pages 12 and 13. So flip a couple. Okay, and on pages 12 and 13, what does that map tell you? Look down at the map right here on page 13.
It tells you where Australia is.
Okay, tells you where Australia is. How's it do that?
Because it has like the map, I guess, of like the whole world, and then like it just zooms in, and there's Australia.
Okay, good. So you noticed that was a map of the entire world, and then it kind of zoomed in on Australia, right? Okay, now focusing on this one right here. What does that tell you?
The green is platypus range,
Okay, what's that mean?
like where platypuses live.
Okay, so can you find platypuses all over Australia?
No.
No, just in that particular region, right? Good. So it says at the bottom, right here, next to the map, what do we call those? Kind of a sidebar of a picture. Remember?
Like footnotes?
Close, that's a really good guess. It's called a caption.
Oh.
Okay. So it says the platypus makes its home in wetland areas in the eastern part of Australia, shown in green on the map. So you kind of inferred that based on the key, right, of the map. So that was awesome before even having to read the caption. Okay, so now I'm finally going to let you read the whole book. Okay, so I want you to, I'm actually going to give you the choice because we're going to switch it up a little bit. Do you want to read it together this time? Or you want to just kind of take time to read it on your own and then come back?
Read it together.
Together? Okay. All right, so flip back to page 2. Actually, flip to page 1. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Oh,
What do we call this page?
the table of contents.
And what's the table of contents page tell us?
It likes to tell you where like the main parts in the story.
Okay, so it kind of separates the main parts out, right? And tells you what pages you can flip through. So if I wanted to read about the platypus and its history, what page would I turn to?
15.
15. Good. I'm just kind of quizzing you on that. All right, let's go to page 2. How about you start reading first?
Okay. Over 200 years ago, British settlers began arriving in Australia, an unknown land with 10,000 miles from their home. Once they looked around, they discovered some big surprises. Australia is south of the equator, so the weather seemed upside down and backwards to the British. The seasons were reversed, with winter in July and summer in January. Even the trees seemed odd. Many trees kept their leaves all year and shed back bark instead. But the Australian animals were the strangest of all. Most settlers had never seen animals that carried their young in pouches with their stomachs. They had never seen animals move like kangaroos, which did not run or walk, but bounce along on big feet. But the strangest creature of all was yet to be discovered. In 1797, a sailor came across a remarkable animal at the edge of a lake. It had soft fur and was about the size of a rabbit. It also had a large bill with webbed feet like a duck, and under the webbed feet there were claws. What was this particular creature? The sailor had stumbled upon a mystery.
Okay, so over 200 years ago, right? Settlers. What are settlers?
Like people who travel?
Okay, so people who travel kind of move from place to place, right? Okay, so the settlers went to Australia, right? And had anybody ever been to Australia before them? Or was it kind of an unknown land?
And then
It was an unknown land, right? And based on what it told us about Australia's environment, is it kind of like where we live? No, what's different about it?
they're animals and it's like the seasons and stuff.
There's seasons, and what was different about the seasons?
Like in summer for us it would be summer and it would be like hot outside, but for them in summer it'd be like cold, like winter.
Okay, so it's kind of like backwards, right? So when they're like June and July and August, usually when we're out by the pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would be all bundled up in
And
their
so-
winter clothes, right? Okay, good. And so you said something about their animals. What animal did they see?
Kangaroo.
A kangaroo, right? And why was it weird? What was weird about the kangaroo?
Like they would have like their little baby in like their stomach.
In their stomach. And had the settlers ever seen an animal like that before? No, that was kind of odd to them. What else was different about the kangaroo that they weren't used to seeing?
Like how it ran and walked.
How it ran and walked. And does a kangaroo run and walk like we're used to seeing?
No.
How does it get around? You can look back. How's it get around?
But it bounced along on big feet. So
Okay.
it bounced.
It bounces, right? Good. Okay. And then out in the last paragraph, it came across a remarkable animal by a lake. And how did they describe that animal?
It had soft fur and it was about the size of a rabbit. So
Soft fur and was like a rabbit.
wait,
What,
was that the kangaroo they're talking about?
I don't know. What else did they say about it? Let's see. So, is a kangaroo the size of a rabbit?
No.
Oh, it's probably what?
Large.
Pretty large, right?
Big.
Looking at this picture, that looks a little bit bigger than a rabbit, right?
Maybe that.
Okay, so maybe the baby, right? But do you think they're talking about the kangaroo? No. Okay, who do you think they're talking about?
Maybe the little one.
Think
Well,
of-
it could get bigger.
Think about what the whole book's about, like the title and the front cover of it.
Wait, can I look?
Yeah. What animal you think that they found?
Oh, a platypus.
A platypus, probably. So they said it had a large bill. You know what the bill is?
The nose.
The nose, right? And he said that that's like and webbed feet like a duck. And under the webbed feet there were claws. That's not like a duck though. So that is a really weird animal that they're. Could you imagine? And we kind of already talked about this, but could you imagine just going to an unknown place and seeing an animal you had never seen before?
Oh, I'd be scared.
Why would you be scared?
Well, I'm usually scared of like a lot of animals, even though I see them a lot. But like, if I didn't know what this animal could do, like let's say it could jump and like bite you or something, then
Right.
I'd be totally scared.
You know nothing about this animal, so I mean, kind of you're scared of the unknown, right? Okay, good. All right, let's go down to the next page. I'll read this one. So it's titled, "Is This a Real Animal?" There were no scientists in Australia at the time. So remember, it was a long time ago, right? So when settlers found new plants and animals, they sent examples back to Great Britain to be studied and identified by scientists there. That is why some settlers took one of the mysterious duck-billed creatures that had died and stuffed and dried it. Then they sent it to the famous British Museum in London, England. At the British Museum, George Shaw was the first scientist to examine and write about this unfamiliar creature. He also gave it a name, platypus, from a Greek word that means flat-footed. Shaw described the platypus's unusual features in great detail, but he did not know if he could trust his own eyes. How could any animal be this strange? It is impossible not to entertain, or have, some doubts as to the genuine nature of the animal, Shaw noted. In other words, Shaw wondered if the animal was a fake or a hoax. He had a good reason to be worried. Okay, so the scientists, well, first of all, there were no scientists in Australia, right? When they got there, because it was just these settlers that were traveling and they came upon Australia, right? And they were finding all these new plants and animals. But they wanted scientists to really look at it, right? And make sure it was like real things, it wasn't dangerous, kind of learn more about it, right?
Yeah.
So they sent it back to where they had come from, which was Great Britain, right? And scientists looked at it there. So they sent back, they took this platypus that they had found. They didn't know what it was yet though, right? And it had died, so they kind of dried it up and they stuffed it and sent it back to Great Britain for the scientists to study, right? So what was the name of the scientist that kind of took over the platypus study?
George? No. Shaw?
Yeah, George Shaw, good. And what was his first reaction to the platypus?
He thought it was like fake or something.
He thought it was fake, right?
Or
Why would he think it's good or a hoax? I like that you're using that word. Why would he think that it's a hoax or fake?
because he never seen this animal before, and like he was like the first one to see it.
Okay, he had never seen anything about it. He'd asked around maybe. Nobody else had seen it before. Was it anything like any other animal he had ever seen?
No, because this animal didn't look normal.
It didn't look normal. Okay, good. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, you go ahead and finish this section for me.
A hoax is a trick or joke that fools people, sometimes even scientists, into believing something is real when it's not. In Sean's day, dishonest traders saw real fish tails on two mermaids.
Skip the line. Two.
Oh,
Here you go.
two monkeys' bodies to convince people that these creatures were mermaids. Some people believed these mermaids were real, and they paid a lot of money to buy them. Sean wanted to make sure he was not writing about a fake animal, so he used a pair of scissors to cut and carefully examine the edge of platypus bill. He was looking for stitches. He wanted to make sure someone hadn't when
Sewn.
sewn a duck's bill onto a furry body of another animal. Once Shaw was sure that the stuffed platypus was not a hoax,
Hoax, good.
he declared this discovery of a new species. But other scientists still had doubts. They needed to see living platypus before they believed they really exist.
Okay, so going back, so George Shaw, he thought it was a hoax, right? He didn't think it was a real animal. Okay? So he was saying that back then, and this was what the first paragraph was telling us, back then, traders who just wanted to kind of make a lot of money, so that's why they called them dishonest traders, because they didn't really tell the truth. They did whatever they could to make a lot of money, right? Dishonest traders would sew real fish tails. So think about a fish and like their tail, right?
Oh, yeah.
Real fish tails onto monkeys. You know what sew means?
Like, yeah, I do.
Like a needle and thread, right? So they would take a real fish tail and a monkey and sew the fish tail onto the monkey. And they would convince people that these were mermaids, right? So is that real? No. So that would be considered a what? What's our new word?
Hoax.
A hoax.
A hoax.
Hoax. Very good. Okay. So that's why Shaw was kind of skeptical, right? He was kind of like, I don't know about this platypus thing, right? It doesn't look real. He thought that somebody had taken the bill, right? Its nose, and even you had said this,
Yeah.
that it looked kind of fake, right? So what did he think somebody did with,
Like, got the duck's beak and just stuck it on another animal.
right? They thought that they took a different furry animal, right? And took the bill of a duck and sewed it on there, right? Okay, so he was thinking the same thing you kind of said you would have had you not known it was a real animal, right? So, but then other people, so Shaw kind of, and the people with him were like, we need to see real ones in their actual environment before we can believe it really exists, okay? So moving on, it's called Hard to Believe, but Real. Because the platypus is very shy and hunts at night, settlers in Australia had a hard time finding them. Over time, though, they had more chances to watch the platypus and to observe how it lived. When scientists who came to Australia finally had the chance to examine living, breathing platypuses, they were forced to accept the animal as a new species. Scientists also decided that even though it had a beak like a duck, the platypus was a mammal. But unlike many mammals in Australia, it did not have a pouch. So we read about at the bottom earlier what a mammal was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we are.
yes, humans are mammals. So that kind of gives you an idea, right? Did you know humans are considered animals?
I did not know that.
No? Yeah, we're a species of animals.
So I'm an animal.
Sure are.
That's weird.
That is weird to think about, isn't it? Okay, so why did the scientists have a hard time finding the platypuses?
Because it was only in Australia and
Okay, but even though they went to Australia, right, it was still hard to find. Do you remember why?
because there was all these other animals.
Look in the first sentence again. Can you reread that for me?
Because the platypus is very shy and it hunts at night. Oh,
So why would they have a hard time finding them?
because they'd be sleeping and stuff.
Right, so during the day when it's light,
Yeah, and they're really shy.
and they're really, so they kind of hide from people, right? That's what shy means. And then during the day, when the scientists are out looking for them, what'd you say the platypuses were probably doing? Sleeping, because they wake up at night and go hunt, right? Okay, good. So they had a hard time finding them. All right, let's keep reading. I'll keep going with this section. It says in 1864, settlers in Australia began making new claims about the platypus that seemed impossible, even for the surprising creature. They claimed to have seen a platypus lay 2 eggs. I'm going to stop there for a second. They saw the platypus lay 2 eggs. Why would people think that that was impossible for this animal?
Because like they never saw the animal.
Okay, they've never seen the animal before, but what did they classify the animal as on the last page?
Like sleeping?
Go back and look. What did they classify?
A mammal.
A mammal. And what do we know about mammals?
They have hair. They have a backbone. They give birth to live. Oh, not eggs.
They don't lay eggs, right?
And the platypus did.
And they're saying the platypus did, right?
But
I don't know. Let's keep reading. Because it says they claimed. So that means people are saying something, but we don't necessarily know if it's true or not, right? So this was big news because scientists had said that the platypus was a mammal, and mammals did not lay eggs. Birds and reptiles, like snakes and lizards, lay eggs. Some scientists believe the stories about the 2 eggs, but most scientists argued against the idea that a platypus had laid eggs. Why would most scientists think that that couldn't have happened?
because mammals don't lay eggs.
Because mammals don't lay eggs, good. Finally, in 1884, British scientist William Hay Caldwell came to Australia to settle the argument. He spent months camped near a river where platypuses lived, studying them closely. Then, after nearly 5 months of research, Caldwell sent a telegram to other scientists confirming the surprising fact. The platypus laid eggs.
Wow.
So, this was like a huge discovery, right? So, William Hay Caldwell, a British scientist, he was determined to figure out whether this was true or not, right? So, he went out and did what?
Researched about it?
He researched, good, and he went out and he camped out near where the platypuses lived, and he studied them, and he found what?
Like he found like the answers.
Yeah, what did he see really did happen?
That platypus laid eggs.
Yeah, that the platypus laid eggs, right? So that was crazy because people had thought all this time that it was a mammal, and mammals don't lay eggs, right? So it says Caldwell's news about platypus eggs shocked scientists around the world. But that was not the end of the story. Scientists learned that once platypus babies hatch, the mother feeds her babies milk, like other mammals. But how she does it is different. The platypus has pores on her stomach that sweat or leak milk, and the babies lick the milk off of her fur. So, have you ever sweat before?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're at cheerleading practice or something?
Mhm.
You ever get really hot?
Yeah.
What happens when you start to sweat?
Like, I guess like water comes and like dripping down.
Kinda, it's like a liquidy substance, right? Okay, it starts dripping out of your skin, right? So that comes out of things called pores, which are like little teeny tiny holes in our skin that, body's crazy, right? Okay, so your pores open up and sweat starts to come out, right? So this happens for the platypuses too, but the difference is what happens when the platypus starts to sweat. What comes out of the platypus?
Egg? Well, like
Not eggs. What did it say? What's it start to leak?
sweat? No.
It compared it to sweating. Right here, what's it start to leak?
Milk.
Milk, right?
Yeah.
And so then you can kind of see it in the picture here. The babies
yeah.
then lick the milk out of the, I know, don't throw up on me, okay? The babies start to lick the milk off of the fur of their mom, right? And that's how they get fed. So, another quality of a mammal, right? The mom feeds the baby's milk, right? So, lots of qualities of a mammal, but what's the one thing that it does do that mammals don't?
Lay eggs.
Lay eggs, so that's still kind of a mystery.
Ew.
All right, why don't you read this one for me?
Okay. A class of its own. Scientists fit plants and animals into classes or groups. Many mammals in Australia are marsupials.
Well, let's use the translation. Marsu. So marsupials.
Marsupials. In a class of mammals with pouches.
Okay, so that just said that many mammals in Australia are marsupials. I know we spent a lot of time on that word, so let's just go over this. So our marsupials, which is a class of mammals with pouches. So what animal do we know is a marsupial? An animal with a pouch.
A kangaroo.
A kangaroo, good. All right, keep reading for me right here.
But the platypus didn't fit into a marsupial class. It was a mammal, but it didn't have a pouch. Scientists had a class for every living thing, but they didn't have one for the platypus. So they made one up. In 1835, scientists created a new class for the platypus, monotreme.
Very good, monotreme.
A monotreme is a egg-laying mammal. Wow. There are a lot of marsupials, about 250 different types. Monotremes are pretty rare. In fact, there is only 2 monotremes that scientists know about today: the platypus and the echidna.
So what sound does that I make? Echidna. Okay. So they created a whole new class for the platypus because they knew it was a mammal, right? But it wasn't a marsupial. Why wasn't it a marsupial?
Because it laid eggs?
No.
No.
What did it say marsupials
because it didn't have a pouch.
Good, it didn't have a pouch, right? So they had to come up with a whole new one. And they called it the monotreme, okay? And a monotreme is an egg-laying mammal, okay? And are there a lot of monotremes in the world?
Only 2.
Only 2, the platypus and the echidna, right? So right here it tells us, and there's a caption for it, this is an echidna right here, okay? We'll read about that in a second. What's this down here? You don't know? What's it look like? Where have you seen something like that before?
Like telling you what the differences are?
Okay, it's kind of like a web almost. Maybe you've seen those in science class or when you're writing, maybe. Okay, so here is one class of mammals, right? But then mammals can be separated into 2 different parts, right? You have the marsupials that have the pouches, and then you have the monotremes that lay eggs. But what did the marsupials and the monotremes have in common?
Mammal?
They're both mammals. Okay, see how that works?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they're both mammals. That's why we have kind of this umbrella category, right? but then it separates into two separate parts. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next page. So it says the platypus, right here. The platypus is not alone. What animal do you think we're about to read about?
Platypus? No. Maybe kangaroo? No. This animal. The
And what do we call that?
echidna.
Echidna. Okay? And we can kind of gather that because it says the platypus is not alone. And over here, what did we just learn about?
Yeah, there's only two thingies, so.
Right. So there's two, they called it a monotreme, right? So it's going to tell us a little bit about the other animal that's considered a monotreme, okay? The echidna. So it says, in time, people learned that the platypus was not the only monotreme. Australia is home to one other surprising egg-laying mammal, the echidna. Instead of a duckbill and webbed feet, this animal has a long, thin beak and a body covered with spines. The echidna is also called a spiny anteater. It does eat ants, but it also eats termites and other insects. It pulls these bugs into its tiny mouth with a long tongue that looks like a worm. You can look here. Look how long and thin that is. Then it has a long tongue that comes out and kind of picks up those little bugs. Yep. What other animal do you know that has spikes like this?
I know what it is, but I don't know.
Remember what it's called? Starts with a P.
A wait.
Maybe a porcupine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they have spikes like that. Very good. All right, go ahead on page 12 for me.
Platypus live near rivers.
Don't forget to read this.
Life as a platypus.
Good.
Platypus live near rivers and streams in the eastern Australia. The platypus is perfectly designed for the life it leads, which includes spending a lot of time underwater in addition to web feet that helps it swim. It has trail that is like a paddle. The smooth shape of the platypus helps it move easily through the water. When the platypus is underwater, it closes its nose, ears, and eyes. It doesn't need to see in order to hunt. Its leather bill is sensitive that is also sensitive. They can pick up the tiny electric signals made by other animals as they move. It makes it possible for the platypus to find the underwater creatures that it eats, like worms, shrimp, and crayfish. Once the platypus finds food, it heads for the surface. The platypus doesn't have teeth, so it crushes a little grinds its food on a tongue pads inside its bill.
On tough pads inside its bill. Okay, so that bill does a lot, right? So there's sensors on it, it was saying, that kind of, when it's swimming underwater, kind of help it locate all of its food, right? It's pretty cool. And it doesn't have teeth, so the pads inside help to break up those food. Okay? All right. Last page here. Go ahead and turn. So it says, one more unusual and scary feature. Uh-oh. A platypus comes from an egg, like a reptile, and it is like a reptile in another way. The male platypus is poisonous, just like many snakes, but it doesn't have a deadly bite. Instead, it has sharp, bony spurs or spikes on its back feet, and the spurs are full of poison. A platypus spur delivers enough poison to kill a dog. If a platypus kicks a person with its spur, the person won't die, but will be in a terrible pain for weeks. Some people have said that injury feels like being stung by hundreds of bees at the same time. So then it kind of gives, what do we call this?
Like a
Something like a diagram, okay? It kind of shows you, here's a picture of the platypus, right? And then it kind of, just like it did on the map, zooms in and breaks it down for us. So here's its regular claws, and then right here is its spur. That's kind of has this gland that holds poison in it. So when the platypus kicks somebody with that spur, it injects poison into the body. I know, kind of scary. All right, last page, we're almost done. There's a place in history. It has been more than 200 years since the scientist George Shaw examined and named the platypus that had been sent to him in London, England. That famous platypus has been moved to London's Natural History Museum, but if you went there, you would not be able to see it. The museum keeps the platypus in a sealed box in a special cupboard to protect it because it is so important to the history of science. If you could visit it, you would be able to see the cut marks that George Shaw made on the bill to check if the animal was a hoax. The features that make the platypus so unusual and almost unbelievable are the very features that make it so interesting. The platypus is unique. It is a real one-of-a-kind animal from a one-of-a-kind land. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, so what was new or surprising to you?
I did not know anything about platypus.
You didn't know any of it? Okay, just pick a couple things that were like most surprising about it.
Like that, like one person that wasn't a scientist, like saw it first.
Okay, so people that just were kind of going to new land, right? Were the first people to see it. I'll tell you what interested me was I didn't realize that Australia had so many unique plants and animals, right? That you couldn't really find anywhere else in the world. What else interests you? Was there anything else?
That the platypus was a mammal, but like since it had eggs, like it's kind of confusing.
Okay.
But like that interests me.
Yeah, so it was kind of a big mystery of, is it a mammal or is it not, right? Okay, good. So next time we meet, we're gonna do a little bit more. We're gonna revisit this book just a little bit, okay, and do some work with it. But good job today.